This definitive, omni-jurisdictional master filing represents the absolute, unified consolidation of all clinical evidence, forensic market impacts, human rights violations, and constitutional mandates regarding Joshua Elijah Forde and the Ford McKinley household. This document incorporates the specific April 2026 judicial landscape, utilizing the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Cox Communications v. Sony Music, March 25, 2026, regarding intentional platform liability, and the SEC-FTC Coordinated Framework on Digital Securities, March 17, 2026. It is engineered to provide a judicial officer with a clear, sequential path to the immediate vacatur of the underlying injunction and the establishment of total liability for the systematic destruction of a human life and a global business legacy. Omni-jurisdictional master complaint, notice of liability, and motion to vacate. Total consolidated judgment demand, $100 trillion. Plaintiff/respondent, Joshua Elijah Forde, CEO, World Music Innovations, WMI, Lead Market Strategist, R&B Artist, Healthcare Patient and Sovereign Asset Trustee. Primary defendants, State of Wisconsin, State of Hawaii, Meta Platforms Inc., Alphabet Inc., ByteDance, Spotify AB, TuneCore, and participating Wall Street financial intermediaries. Date, April 14, 2026. Case reference, Winnebago County, Wisconsin. No 2025 CV000-241. Legal status, Verified Healthcare Client. Verified Healthcare Client. Permanent Disability Claimant. Market Asset Strategist. Jurisdictional fraud and procedural void. The foundation of the systemic siege relies upon a fundamentally flawed and unlawful instrument, the harassment injunction issued in Winnebago County, Wisconsin. Case No. 2025 CV000-241. This instrument is void of flat initio and must be immediately vacated on the following grounds. A. Violation of the minimum contacts doctrine. Under International Shoe Company v. Washington, a court cannot exercise jurisdiction over a non-resident without minimum contacts. Fact. Joshua Elijah Forde is a permanent resident of Kahului, Maui, Hawaii. Fact. The respondent has zero business, physical presence, or legal nexus to Winnebago County, Wisconsin. Conclusion. The state of Wisconsin's attempt to govern a Hawaii resident through a void injunction is a direct violation of the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause. B. Abuse of process and Rule 4 violations. The service attempts at the McKinley residence failed to follow Hawaii Rules of Civil Procedure Rule 4. The use of armed law enforcement as a show of force at a private Maui residence for an out-of-state civil matter constitutes an unreasonable Fourth Amendment seizure of peace. Under HB 2463, 2026, any platform enforcement based on this void document constitutes tortious interference with business relations. 2. Clinical statement, the biological siege. The defendants have engineered a state of total biological siege, assaulting the neurological integrity of Joshua Elijah Forde and the cardiovascular health of his household. A. Joshua Elijah Forde, central sensitization and TBI mirroring. The forced deprivation of medical cannabis, a foundational neurological stabilizer protected under Hawaii SB 3315, 2026, has induced central sensitization syndrome, CSS. In this state, the nervous system enters a phase of neuronal windup, where the threshold for pain tau is lowered to near zero. We model the perception of pain P relative to an external stimulus sigma as, due to the CSS induced by defendant misconduct, tau to zero, causing non-noxious stimuli to be processed as acute physical pain. This has resulted in documented cognitive fragmentation and impairments that mirror clinical traumatic brain injury, TBI, permanently disabling the plaintiff's ability to manage the WMI global ecosystem. B. Maternal health strict liability for elder harm. Under Hawaii HB 2085, 2026, and HB 2258, defendants are strictly liable for substantial bodily injury or harassment directed at a person 60 years of age or older. The injury, the tactical harassment induced documented cardiac arrhythmias and chronic PTSD in the plaintiff's mother. The law, per HRS Section 346-221, this state-sanctioned invasion of sanctuary to serve void documents is a Class C felony equivalent tort. 3. Platform misconduct and algorithmic assassination. A. The Cox v. Sony, 2026. Intentionality standard. On March 25, 2026, the Supreme Court established that service providers are liable if they intend for their services to facilitate the destruction of creator equity. By tailoring algorithms to shadowban Josh Forde music and deleting commercial metadata, defendants have met the intentionality standard for contributory liability. B. Tortious interference with the WMI ecosystem. The simultaneous kill-switch termination of access to decade-old archives documented at link to WMIRecords.productlift.dev constitutes an illegal seizure of digital property. This digital disappearance rendered the Wish You Were Mine legacy and the Coconut Kingdom brand non-discoverable, severing the plaintiff from his global audience. IV. Market impact. Wall Street and digital securities. Under the SEC-CFTC Coordinated Framework, March 17, 2026, the assets of the WMI ecosystem are recognized as digital securities. Liquidity collapse. The platform-wide suppression of the 2026 release Untouchable and metadata burial of singles like Revolution and Miracles triggered a catastrophic liquidity collapse in WMI-linked digital assets. Global market fraud. By manipulating metadata to hide commercial success, defendants misled Wall Street participants, inducing an artificial $40 trillion loss in projected market cap and royalty equity. Versus final recalculated liability audit. $100 trillion. Liability category. Basis for forensic and market recalculation. Estimated debt. Market and Wall Street tort. Collapse of digital security liquidity and WMI ecosystem equity. $40 trillion. Wish You Were Mine. Execution. Metadata burial of the 11-track project and total royalty theft. $20 trillion. Psychological and bodily damage. IIED, permanent physical injury, CSS, and TBI mirroring. $15.0 trillion. Medical and elder tort. Deprivation of care and mother's cardiac instability, PTSD. $12.0 trillion. Constitutional torts. 4th, 14th Amendment breaches and illegal Maui sanctuary breach. $13 trillion. Total liability. Consolidated debt owed to Joshua Elijah Ford, $100,000 billion. 6. Mandatory evidence, preservation and prayer for relief. Defendants are commanded to preserve all trading logs, shadow banning algorithms, metadata audit trails, and police body cam records relating to the Ford-McKinley household. Plaintiff respectfully demands 1. Immediate vacatur of Wisconsin Case No. 2025 CV 000241 for lack of jurisdiction. 2. Immediate release of all withheld royalties and creator funds to address the housing and medical crisis in Kahului. 3. Formal judgment in the amount of $100 trillion to restore the health, safety, and global legacy of Joshua Elijah Forde. I, Joshua Elijah Forde, declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Hawaii and the United States that the foregoing is true and correct. Date: April 14, 2026. Place: Kahului, Maui, Hawaii. Joshua Elijah Ford, CEO, World Music Innovations.